Hi, welcome to the channel. My name is Eloy. In this video, I want to try to teach you the player rules for Free League's Alien, the role-playing game. This video is part of a series. If you haven't watched the previous videos, check the playlist and start at number 1. Hi. So, today we're talking about stealth mode. This game has two basic modes. One is stealth, which is akin to exploration modes in other games, and combat mode, which we'll get to a little bit later. We'll start with stealth. But before we do, we need to define or take a look at what the game defines as the units of time and space. And so it's a very intuitive system. It's divided into rounds, turns, and shifts. Much like we divide, normal timekeeping into seconds, minutes, and hours. This goes round, which is the smallest unit, turn, and then shift is the largest unit. And it conveniently is very easy to remember because each time unit is comprised of 5 to 10. So a round is 5 to 10 seconds. A turn is 5 to 10 minutes. And a shift is 5 to 10 hours. So you just need to remember 5 to 10. And then the order of units corresponds to normal time units. So rounds corresponds to seconds. Turns corresponds to minutes. Shifts correspond to hours. Now, those of us who've played old school games have a very nice reference point, and it's the 6-second combat round. And so 5 to 10, you could say 6. So a combat round could be 6 seconds, a turn could be 6 minutes, and a shift could be 6 hours. And this is also convenient because although the game says that a shift is anywhere from 5 to 10 hours, it also says that there are 4 shifts in a day. And so if you remember 6 and go by the units, it's even better because a shift would then be 6 hours. There's 4 shifts in a day. It divides those shifts into morning, day, evening, and night. The next thing it covers is ranges. Engaged range is when the opponent is right next to you. Short range is a few meters away within the same zone. Medium is up to 25 meters away, which, for us Americans it would be 82 feet away. It's somebody in an adjacent zone. Not in this one, but in the next one. Then there is long range, which is up to about 100 meters or 330 feet for us. And extreme range, up to 1 kilometer or 3,273 feet, which is 0.6 miles, right? A zone is the distance which accounts for up to 25 meters or 82 feet. For Americans, that's what constitutes a zone. And it mentions different types of zone. There seem to be open zones with no restrictions, but there are also zones that are cluttered, in which you have to roll mobility when moving into the zone in order to move in successfully. Now, if you succeed, you just move into the zone. If you fail, you also enter the zone, but you fall down, and you have to deal with that. There are also dark zones which are dimly lit and impose a -2 modification to observation rolls and to ranged attacks due to poor visibility. And there is another type of zone, which is the cramped zone, which includes tunnels in which you can only crawl and you cannot run. You cannot move or shoot past individuals next to you, meaning that if there's somebody right next to you, you can shoot them, or you can, try to move past them, but if there's somebody beyond them, you cannot shoot that individual or move past them. And so, as I mentioned, the game has 2 modes, combat and stealth. And so we start with stealth, which is, going to be most of the movement around all of the time when you are not engaged in combat. The initial time units we discussed, when you are in combat mode, you are working in rounds, which again is 6 seconds. When you are working in stealth mode, you are in turns. So everything is 5 to 10 minutes, or 6 minutes thereabouts. I forgot to remember that the last time measurement shifts is for recovery and such, and we'll talk about that later. But for now, stealth mode, turns, so minutes. In each turn, you can move 2 zones, and this includes scanning and exploration of said zones. If you desire more detailed exploration of a zone, such as accessing a data terminal, that requires an extra turn. When you are in stealth mode, you automatically detect enemies in passive mode who are in the same zone or within your line of sight. Enemies have 2 modes. They're either active or passive, and that is something that is a problem for the game mother. But suffice it to say, if there are passive enemies in the same zone or in line of sight, they will be automatically detected. If you don't try to actively stealth past them, they will detect you too. And in which case, if you see them and they see you, you then go to initiative, right? However, if you want to sneak past the enemies or attempt to sneak attack the enemies, then there are other steps you need to take. In order to sneak past, you roll mobility versus observation, and you get modifications from distance. Depending on how far away you are from your opponent, you may be able to sneak past them, but it'll be easier or harder. You cannot spot active enemies that choose to remain hidden and who don't attack you unless you have detected them with a motion tracker or if they are in an obvious position. So if the game master has determined that an opponent is active, again, they're not automatically spotted. They could be hidden if they don't attack you, right? And then you can only find them with a motion tracker, or if they're in somewhere where you would expect them to go, right? Like you saw them from the previous zone, and you enter this zone, and maybe there's a closet or a shower, and there's nowhere else to hide. Well, you know where the opponent must have gone. Anyway, you may use motion tracker once per turn. Now, when you use the motion tracker, you must make a power supply roll. This function is not clearly defined in the rules that I could find, but it has to do with your inventory items, which may get consumed. And so you're supposed to do power supply rolls. We may talk about that later on as pertains to gear and supplies. When using the motion tracker once per turn, you will automatically detect large moving objects up to long range, which is defined as 4 zones indoors and extreme range outdoors, and they reveal which zone your opponent is in. Or the object. It doesn't really need to be your opponent, just a moving object. If the target is small or well hidden, you may have to make an observation roll on top of this to spot the actual location of the target. Once the enemy is spotted, you can go on to the combat, right? Before we go into detail of combat, we mentioned the possibility of going into sneak attacks, and those go before combat. And once you go into combat, you'll be drawing initiative cards, which go from 1 to 10. So, Free League sells initiative cards, or you may use any set of playing cards, right? Just pick a suit. It goes from 1 to 10. Or index cards and write down numbers, and they go from 1 and up, right? 1 goes first, and 10 goes last. This initiative turn lasts for the entire combat unless you exchange cards with somebody. You can exchange cards with your fellow players or with your enemies, and we'll discuss that later. You can exchange those cards between player characters at the start of the fight or at the start of the round, but never in the middle of a round. And finally, we need to discuss actions. Actions come in two variants. They may be slow actions or fast actions. And so each combat round, you may perform one slow and one fast action, or two fast actions. Now, in general terms, slow actions are when you roll dice, right? And fast action are usually related to movement or actions which do not require the rolling of a skill. One of the important tables in the game that you should look up is a set of tables which specifies which actions are slow and which actions are fast, right? So fast is mostly movement, picking up items, running, shove, aim, retreat, seek, cover. Whereas slow actions are, shooting your weapons, attacking with a weapon or unarmed, applying first aid, reloading a weapon, stuff like that. So refer to the table because this will be very important. Again, it's either one slow and one fast or two fast actions. You cannot take two slow actions in one round. The game offers the advice of turning the initiative cards so you can remember which actions you've already taken. It says turn the initiative card 90 degrees to the left for a fast action and to the right to indicate a slow action. And when you're done both your actions for the round, turn the card upside down so you'll know that your turn already passed, and when the new turn comes around, or when the new round, rather, comes around, and you can flip them up. It's important to note that when others are helping, the act of helping consumes the same type of action as the character you're trying to help. Let's see. Okay, so now we go to movement. You can run, which is a fast action, and you move one zone, or you move between short and engaged range. You may crawl, which is moves the same amount of distance, right? One zone or between short and engaged, but it does so as a slow action rather than a fast action. So, in combat, you can either run or crawl. Remember, this is condensed. It's only in stealth mode where you move normally, as we previously described. So again, in combat, you either run as a fast action, moving one zone or between short and engaged range, or you crawl, which you move the same distances but as a slow action. If you are engaged in close combat, then you cannot simply walk away from it using a run or crawl. You must retreat. And this means that you have to roll mobility in order to move from engaged to short range. If you succeed, you just move out of the combat, right out of the close combat into short range. However, if you fail, you still move. It's just that the enemy gets a free close combat attack against you. And this free attack does not count toward your actions in the round, so it's completely free. And furthermore, you cannot block it because you moved out carelessly. Another note indicates that doors and hatches and how to move past them. To open an unlocked door or hatch is a fast action. If the door or hatch is locked, it must be broken down. Average metal doors or hatches take 10 points of damage to destroy. Or you may open them electronically if they have an electronic lock, utilizing a Comtech roll. And so that's basic movement in the stealth mode. And let's tackle the two different attacks that you can be involved in before the actual close combat or ranged combat, and these are the special circumstances of ambushes and sneak attacks. Remember, these are performed when you are aware of the opponent and want to attack them before they notice you. So, a sneak attack is something performed by an individual. It's one person sneaking to attack one target. This is not a group thing. Each person has to do their sneak attack individually. To do so, you roll mobility versus the opponent's observation. And again, this is subject to modification depending on how close you want to go. Meaning, how close do you want to get to your target before you perform the sneak attack. If you want to go up to engaged range to attack them hand to hand, where you're going to have a -2 modification to your mobility roll to get there. If you're fine engaging in this attack, sneak attack at medium or long range, you probably have some modifiers. Look up the table, because that's an important table to keep handy as well. If you succeed, let's start. If you fail that mobility versus observation, it means the opponent has seen you. And he sees you at your starting distance. So however far away you started before you attempted this sneaking roll, you are seen. And this means that we go to initiative into regular combat, which we'll discuss in the next video. However, if you succeed, this means that you get a free action. It could be a slow action or it could be a fast action, but it cannot be both. You take this free action before you draw the initiative. And further, the target cannot block a sneak attack. So you can, if you have a ready gun in your hand, you could shoot them. Or if you have you can always walk up to them to engage and attempt an attack, with bare hands. It's going to depend on which weapon you have ready and how close to your target you want to get. Remember, if you are spotted because you fail, you start at the distance where you began attempting this sneak attack. And so that's the single player version, right? One sneak attacker, one victim. But there's also a special sneak attack called an ambush. This is a group thing. You could ambush somebody by yourself or with a group. To do so, you will again roll mobility versus observation, but in this case, the slowest and loudest rule applies. So the person with the lowest skill in mobility is going to roll for the ambushers, and the target of the ambush, who has the highest observation skill in the target group, is going to roll. So it's going to be roll mobility by the least skilled versus observation, highest skilled. However, because you are not moving and it is the target that is moving, you will get a +2 modification to the roll. Note again that it's going to depend on how far you want this, or you allow this group of people being ambushed to move. If you're okay engaging them at long distances, you're going to have a lot of bonuses to your roll. If you wish to ambush them when they're really, really close, then that's going to be harder, and you're going to have some negative modifications. But again, the important part here is that groups can participate against a group of targets. And so this is the stealth mode and the sneak attack section, and we're going to stop here and come back in another video for our first foray into combat. So thanks for watching. Take care.